Well, hello everyone. This is Carrie back with How to Homeschool My Child, and this is my week to spend with you. This is How to Homeschool My Child's feature week, so I will be popping in and out of the group all week long. I plan to have a live session every day except Thursday. Thursday, I am traveling to teach them diligently in Nashville at the Gaylord Opryland, and I've got traveling all morning, and then I've got two sessions in the afternoon, so I don't know if I'll be able to do it. But every day at this time, except for Thursday, I will be going live. And today we're going to talk about critical thinking skills. How do we teach our kids critical thinking skills? Before we do that, I just want to introduce my family because I don't have preschoolers, or I'm not just making this up. These are my kids, and they are grown, and we did some things right, we did some things wrong. This is Ashley. She's the oldest. She's married to Jesse, and they have Faith and Elizabeth. This is Gentry. She's married to Andrew, and they have Landry. And this is Hunter. So that is them. Let me just be a good Gigi, and I will show you. The girls are a little bit older now, and Landry just left a little bit ago. We spent the weekend all together for Elizabeth's birthday. But I share who my family is so that you know that my kids are older, and they are making their own decisions. They are thinking critically themselves. And so I just want you to know that what we've done. So one of the goals for our homeschool was that our kids would think critically and biblically and be able to make wise decisions. So I wanted you to know where I'm coming from. I wanted them to use this noggin up here, and I wanted them to use God's word to be able to make wise decisions. Does that mean that now that they are all adults that they make the same decisions that I do or I would? No. But they are using their own thinking skills, and they are using God's word. They're taking the lens of scripture and putting it on, and then making their decisions accordingly. So one of the first things I would say to you is, what are you modeling for your kids? Do you model using the Bible to make decisions and to think critically? Do they see that you sort of maybe wrestle with some ideas, that you are actually thinking through what's going on? That is something, and it's not very easy to do. I will say making decisions is easier to model for your kids than thinking skills. Although one thing that you can do, excuse me, is to talk with your kids about what's going on up here in your head. If you're thinking through a situation, or maybe you've read a book together and you're trying to sort of think through what happened or what your opinion is, one thing you can do with them is let your kids get inside here. And how do we do that? We verbalize what's going on up here. We talk about our thoughts. Now, I'm not saying you need to do this every day, but it might be something, or even when you're making a decision about whether you should, I don't know, go on a trip or not, or whether you should wear masks or not, or whatever. You can take those decisions and talk to your kids about what you and your husband are doing and how you're making that decision, and let them see what's going on up here. Another way that we encourage thinking skills were questions. We asked lots and lots of questions. We asked questions at the dinner table. We asked questions when we were driving in the car. If we were in the park or on a walk, we were constantly asking questions. Maybe we were playing games together after a movie or after a TV show. Asking questions. You can see thinking skills does not need to be a school class or academic all the time. It really should be a part of who you are and a part of your life. And so we would ask questions. Now, sometimes when they were younger, we asked literal questions. What happened in that story? Or what did Daniel Tiger do in the video, if you've got a real little kid? But as they get older, they need to begin to go beyond literal thinking to critical thinking. And that's when we start asking questions like, how did that happen? Why did that war happen? If you were watching maybe a movie on World War II, or what was that? The storming of Normandy. Not Normandy. whatever, the storming at France, I can't remember the name, but you could look at that and see what's going on there and then say, why did that happen? Why did those men, why were they willing to lay down their lives? And that's when we start to find out what our kids are actually thinking. They may not have the answer, but I'm going to give you a little clue. You need to give them plenty of time to answer, because one thing that I have seen that moms do is they ask a question and then they answer their own question, like in 10 seconds. If your child's never had a chance to think about the question you've posed them, you need to give them plenty of time to answer that question. Whether that's a school-related question, whether that's a life-related question, or maybe you're just talking about your hobbies. We love sports, so we would ask questions at the dinner table about sports. Who do you think's going to win and why? And we gave our kids time to answer the question. So here's how it would go for you, Mom. Ask a question and zip up your lips and count to about 100 in your head. And it's going to seem like really quiet for a really long time. But what is going on in that time? In that time of silence, your kids should be thinking. That's what you're doing. Give them time to think. Too often we give them the answer and we move on. And what are you training your kids to do? You are training them to not think. And I'm guilty of it too. I would sort of get in a hurry and in my checklist mentality, and I'd ask a question. They didn't have it. Let's answer it and move on. But that wasn't doing my kids very much good. And so I needed to ask the question and close my mouth and listen and let them talk. If they didn't have an answer, what do? Maybe you've waited for 2 solid minutes and they don't have an answer. Ask another question. The more questions you ask, the more thinking is going on. And I should have told y'all when we started, feel free to pop a question in here, pop in comments or along the way or whatever. Anyway, I will tell you one thing that did not work for me, and that was workbooks. Like just having them do workbooks, even workbooks that were intended for critical thinking. It may get them to think a little bit, but what I wanted them, and this, I will say, most critical thinking starts around age 12 or 13, because that's when abstract thinking kicks in. So I didn't really worry about teaching critical thinking skills in the younger ages. I was more concerned about it with the older ages, because that's when critical thinking is popping in. You know, I wanted my kids to be able to come up with an opinion. Opinions are very critical thinking. That is deep, that is higher level thinking. First, they have to assess what has happened, and then they may have to assess how or why, and then they need an opinion about it as well. So that's a really high level of thinking. Now, what are some things you can maybe do with your little kids? You could have them an opinion. Do you like blue or green better? Do you want peanut butter and jelly or ham and cheese? They're making a decision, and it's a very simple decision. I had a child, could not even tell me what that child wanted to drink when we would stop at a gas station, and that was their turn to choose a drink or whatever. And so we teased about it. We still to this day will tease about it, but that just took a lot of patience on my part to not make those decisions for them. What they had to drink, do you want apple juice or orange juice? I mean, in my opinion, it didn't really matter at the time. I just wanted them to make a decision. So little kids can learn a little bit of critical thinking when you give them very simple decisions to make. But as they get older, they need to start thinking for themselves. They also need to become independent learners. And so in those high school years, we encourage them, and my kids made choices and decisions about the subjects, what they studied. Ashley did not finish Algebra 2. Shock, shock. She got a college degree in 2 years. And then she went back and got her teaching certificate and worked with at-risk kids. So that was really thinking outside the box, but we allowed her the freedom to make her own decisions about education. And so allow your kids to make decisions. What else does that mean? It means you have to hop off that conveyor belt. Most homeschoolers, most private schools, and I would say almost all public schools, jump on that conveyor belt and they do the same thing as everyone else, and then they go to the next stage and they do the same. They got 12 stages, and then they get a stamp of approval. They're sent to the market, the job market. That's what most people are doing. They're all worried. What do you do in third grade? What do you do in 10th grade? What do you do with this grade? I'm not against grade levels. I'm just saying we need to take a step back. And if you want to teach your kids critical thinking, you may need to hop off that conveyor belt and do things a little bit differently than what everyone else is doing. And so we did that in those high school years. We gave our kids the opportunity to be independent learners and to make decisions for themselves. And that, I also think, encouraged critical thinking. Let me go back to my own kids right now. I can tell you right now, 2020 has had like a lot of things happen. We've had health issues, we've had government issues, we've had racial issues, we've had social issues, and my kids pretty much have an opinion on all of those things. Do they match mine? Some of them do and some of them don't. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I will say this, I'm very proud of them because I believe they are using the facts that they have and coming up with the best decisions for themselves, for their family, and just for moving forward. And so that's what we want. They are not going to be little robots that do exactly what I do when they get out of the house. They will make decisions. And the number one thing I want them to do is I want them to go to God. I want them to use the Bible, and I want them to pray and listen to Him. That's how you make good decisions. So let's go back and just review a little bit. How do we encourage critical thinking skills? You need to be modeling that. And they can't see what's going on in here, so sometimes you need to verbalize what you're thinking, how you are making a decision. Excuse me again. Another thing we did was we asked lots of questions in homeschool, but we asked questions, like I said, all day long, dinner time, always asking questions because that's what's giving them a chance to think. And I did not answer my own questions. I always would ask another question. When they were young, we gave them opportunities to make very simple decisions, like what do you want to eat, which movie or which Netflix or whatever which video game, I don't know. Give them two choices and it limits them, but they have to make a decision. So we gave them opportunities for that. And then as they grew older, we wanted them to be independent learners. So we gave them the opportunity to make decisions about their homeschool and what they studied. And I can guarantee you they did not study everything that the public school studies or everything the private school studies or everything the other homeschoolers were studying. We had reasons for that. We let them make decisions based on their reason. Now, before I close today, I do want to mention a couple of resources. I have a resource called Christian Leadership Education, and 1/3 of that course is all about teaching our kids how to think. Normally, you can only enroll in this class in January and September. But last Thursday, I opened it up with a flash sale, and that flash sale ends today. And I am going to, like right now, as I talk, and I'll explain it. See how well I can multitask. Let's see. I'm going to give you a link. If you are interested in it, that is the link. And if you would like to save $10, this is only for top picks. I haven't shared this even in my own group. So you're getting something I haven't even shared in my own Facebook group. But the code TOP will save you $10 as well. And so what is this? Let me just go. I'm going to do this quickly in about 2 or 3 minutes. It is a video course that I am revising starting in April. Since you're starting now, you'll have recordings from an old session. But 1st of April, you can come every week for 12 weeks, and you can join our live class. And what are we going to cover? We're going to cover Raising Leaders, Not Followers, which talks about leadership education, letting your kids take ownership, like I discussed today, of their education, letting them lead instead of follow, letting them have an influence instead of follow. This also will cover character building, a love of learning, the tools of learning, transitioning to independent learning as well. So all of that comes in this ebook as well. I have a paperback just so you can see it. But and then we have teach your children how to think with mentoring. So this goes into detail about what I just talked about. How do you do a really good discussion? How do you ask questions? How do we use reading and writing and discussing to get our kids to think? Then towards the end of it, we land on mentoring and how do we mentor our kids? How do we find good mentors? How do we transition them into real adult life? And then on top of all of that, I have several other resources you can see on that page. One of them is called Hop Off the Conveyor Belt, and it is real moms that have shared ways that they hopped off the conveyor belt and how they implemented all the different steps in these 2 books as well. So that's a third ebook. You'll get some videos that are just already prepared for you, and every week you get a lesson, and it'll say lesson 1, go watch this video these minutes, go read this ebook, do these study guide questions. What I'm going to do now is I'm not going to say watch these minutes. I'm going to change every week into a 1 video, and so you'll get to join the live class as well. I think the total for everything that's on there, including the bonuses right now, is either $280 or $300. You'll get our surprise bonus, which is Start Thinking language bonus, and that's about 7 or 8 classic ebooks. You'll also get a classic book list for children, a list for adults, a list for youth. You'll get schedules and printables that we are updating, so those will be all new again. And when it opens up in September, I will tell you, it will be a whole different course, and I'm really thinking about charging $97 for it, because I think when we revise it, it's going to be have so much great content and so much help. So if you're interested, I would say get on tonight. It closes tonight. This just happened to be my week for featured week, and this just happens to be the day that the flash sale ends. So get on there. If you have questions, leave a comment, and I will be checking back regularly. If you want to save $10, that means you would only pay $37. And let me tell you, the live classes alone are worth more than that. So you can use TOP as your code as well. If you have, like I said, if you have questions, let me know. Let me just review how to teach your kids to think. 4 things that we actually use. 1 was modeling, getting these ideas and talking them out loud for your kids. 2, asking lots of questions. 3, letting them make decisions, even starting at a little age, but then as they get older, letting them become independent learners. There's a lot that goes into that, and I will just tell you that means they need the tools of learning and a love of learning for them to be able to get to independent learning. And so that's why this all comes together. I call it homeschooling with a purpose. Homeschooling with the purpose of raising our kids to influence for Jesus Christ, to have an impact on the world around us instead of following the crowd, instead of following politically correct or the media or whatever, So if you have a question, feel free to pop it in the comment box. Otherwise, I've enjoyed spending a few minutes with you today. I am Carrie Beck with How to Homeschool My Child. I will be back tomorrow. We will talk on character building. On Wednesday, love of learning. And I skipped Thursday. It's my travel day to teach them diligently. If you're in Nashville, I teach them diligently. Leave a comment. Let's see if we can meet up. And then on Friday, I'll talk about moms, how to reduce overwhelm in your homeschool, your family, and your life. All right, I'll talk to you later.